Ripple now scored its by now biggest victory in the entire SEC case. Is there any chance left for the SEC now? And what impact would this loss have on the SEC reputation? Stay tuned till the end of the video to find out. But first, we are giving away 25 XRP coins at the end of the month to one random subscriber to start on their XRP journey. All you need to do is to like the video, subscribe and comment your thoughts on XRP in the comment section. Welcome back XRP Army. Judge Sarah Net Byrne approved the SEC motion for reconsideration of the DPP ruling in the most recent court judgment in the SEC versus Ripple case, which had been widely anticipated. As a result, if granted, it would have far-reaching repercussions not only for the outcome of the XRP lawsuit, but also for the future of both Ripple and the SEC, as well as for that of the cryptocurrency ecosystem in the United States as a whole if it were to be granted. As a result of this significant Ripple victory, many people involved in the case believe that the SEC will prefer to settle rather than hand up its internal documents, perhaps bringing the XRP lawsuit to a close sooner than planned and allowing the cryptocurrency to flourish. It is necessary to register an objection to this judgment with District Judge Torres within 14 days of its publication in the newspaper of general circulation. Due to the inclusion of a bulletproof section that is meant to prevent an appeal, the judgment could be even more significant for Ripple and could prompt the SEC to seek a settlement even more rapidly than had been anticipated. By the way, did you know about this massive win? Let us know in the comment section down below. The production of certain SEC documents was ordered by Judge Net Byrne after she determined that certain SEC documents were not protected by the DPP. This allowed defendants to contest the SEC allegations that Larson and Garlinghouse were objectively reckless in believing that XRP was not a security and that Ripple was on fair notice that XRP was a security. Among other grounds, the court stated that reconsideration of a previous ruling is an extraordinary remedy that should be utilized sparingly in the interests of finality and the conservation of limited judicial resources. As a result of the SEC's unsuccessful attempt to assert privilege, the court failed to recognize that Bill Hinman's 2018 speech on Bitcoin and Ether was intended to communicate an approach taken by the SEC Division of Corporation Finance, and that the speech was the culmination of significant collaboration among many staffers across the SEC, as evidenced by the 68 drafts and associated commentary found in the SEC privilege log. According to the complainant, the Department of Public Prosecutions should ensure that such deliberations are not disclosed to the public. The SEC assertion that the speech was intended to communicate corporation finance's approach to regulating digital asset offerings is inconsistent with the SEC and Hinman's previous position that the speech was intended to and did reflect his personal views, the order stated. The SEC seeks to have it both ways, but the speech was either intended to reflect agency policy or it was not. Having insisted that it reflected Hinman's personal views, the SEC cannot now reject its own position. The speech was not an agency communication, and the deliberations as to its content are not protected by the privilege. The SEC has failed to demonstrate that the court overlooked any factual matters that were put before it in deciding the privilege's applicability to Entry 9 of Appendix A. Its motion for reconsideration is denied. However, mindful of the important public interests served by the privilege, the court agrees that clarification will aid the parties. The court then clarified that its order from January 13, 2022, requires the production of all emails related to and drafts of the speech that are currently on the SEC privilege log, with the exception of communications between staff discussing the speech in the context of how it implicates other, separate agency deliberations, which are exempt from production under the statute and must be produced immediately. Comment, XRP Army, if you believe Ripple's final victory is soon to come. What will be the ramifications of Ripple's victory on the SEC? Furthermore, according to the op-ed, which was published on Law 360, the SEC actions, which included a broad claim combined with aggressive discovery motions, strongly suggest that the SEC expected Ripple to fold quickly and beg for a settlement, and that its legal arguments would never be properly tested in court. They were entirely and utterly wrong. It is fighting back with everything it has, and if the SEC broad arguments are successful, it is possible that trillions of dollars worth of stored wealth across a wide spectrum of cryptocurrencies that are in the same situation as XRP would be wiped out. The SEC has not responded to Ripple's numerous inquiries, with the exception of Hinman's 2018 speech declaring Bitcoin and Ethereum to be non-securities. As a result, Ripple claims that the SEC has failed to provide fair notice if XRP is classified as a security. It is currently being tested whether or not the Securities and Exchange Commission's enforcement-based regulation is effective, with SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce regularly denouncing the practice as destructive. A number of significant questions have been raised as a result of the actions of the Securities and Exchange Commission in the SEC versus Ripple, including what recourse defendants and holders of XRP may have against an intrusive government agency that has abused the authority entrusted to it by Congress. No matter how ill-founded or malicious the SEC actions are, there is currently no remedy available because the doctrine of sovereign immunity, as well as the Federal Tort Claims Act, FTCA, protect the SEC and its officers from any legal consequences arising from intentional wrongdoing on their part. In spite of the fact that it appears absurd at first glance, the Federal Tort Claims Act, FTCA, prohibits suits against federal agencies such as the Securities and Exchange Commission for intentional wrongdoing such as defamation, abuse of process, or malicious prosecution, a common law intentional tort intended to discourage the filing of meritless suits. In addition, Frank Francone emphasized that the Commission's own judgment of the merits of its case, as well as its motivations for conducting this enforcement action, must be thoroughly investigated before any enforcement action is taken. According to Ripple's Garlinghouse, who testified in court that the prosecution is an abuse of prosecutorial discretion, it is probable that the prosecution is motivated by malice. Because the SEC and its employees continue to be protected under the notion of sovereign immunity, regardless of how nefarious their activities are, Frank Francone has called on Congress to modify the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and bring it into compliance with international standards. It is almost inevitable that as more proof of the SEC abuse of power emerges, the number of people asking for reform of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act will rise. Do you agree that this is going to become very tough for the SEC? If yes, then make sure to like this video. What was the reaction of the XRP price to this? Analysts have looked at the price trajectory of XRP and feel that the volume point of control in 2022, which is about 0.77, will be key in determining the altcoin's future direction in the future. The volume point of control is defined as the moment at which the highest amount of an asset has changed hands, and it is related with a stronger tendency for giving support and resistance to the asset. Although XRP's recent decline below this level implies that the cryptocurrency has now taken on a negative tinge, analysts remain bullish on the coin. It is believed by analysts that the volume point of control is a significant level for the price of Ripple, with a break above it bringing the altcoin closer to its upside target of 91 cents as it gains more liquidity. This would be followed by the achievement of the next higher goal of $1.01, which would be accomplished shortly after. What do you think about Ripple's latest victory? What impact will this have on the SEC? Let us know in the comment section. If you want to continue to know about XRP, we have got 2 videos waiting for you on the end screen to check out. Make sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Kindly note that prices of cryptocurrencies frequently change, so by the time you watch this video, it might have changed to a whole new value. The information provided in this video does not constitute investment advice, financial advice, trading advice, or any other sort of advice, and you should not treat any of the content as such. The content in this video is for educational purposes only and hence should not be considered financial advice. Do conduct your due diligence and consult your financial advisor before making any investment decisions.